And good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Tori Cooper. Tonight on the Now Bakersfield, we take you inside the home of a forensic artist to see how her work has helped solve dozens of crimes, bring justice to criminals, and help families find closure. Plus, it's National Voter Registration Day, with the midterm elections only weeks away. Learn more on how you can ensure your voice is heard. Plus, the Now's Allison Gargaro is live at the Kern County Fair. She will join us later with a complete look at what to expect as you enjoy the final week of the fair. That's all ahead on the Now Bakersfield. Chris?
Let's take a look at our lineup here on this Tuesday here on the Now. A major shortage of 911 dispatchers. Taking a look at why it's so hard to fill these jobs, what's being done to make sure someone's there for us in an emergency. And we're also sitting down with Heather Heyer's mother today. Heather was the woman who was killed in last year's white supremacist rally in Charlottesville. Her mother with a strong message about how she wants her daughter remembered.
I really get aggravated when people want to deify her and make her into some saint-like figure who was a leader of some sort. She wasn't.
I can tell you it's a powerful conversation, really about how we can all make a difference. You want to stick around for that. And also take a look at these photos right here. Yeah, they might look awesome, but there is some hidden danger with these, and we'll be talking about that in just a little bit.
Thanks, Chris. Well, when one thinks of an artist, immediately images of paintbrushes and canvases come to mind, along with pictures of landscapes and portraits of people. But tonight, the Now Bakersfield's Kimberly Hunt introduces us to a different type of artist, a woman whose work serves another purpose, giving a voice to the voiceless and families closure.
It's these shapes.
To enter the home of P.J. Pewterbaugh is to step into an artist's studio filled with portraits of famous faces, friends, and family.
My son is in charcoal.
Her love of color comes out in the florals, her classical training in this lady-in-waiting. Whether it's in the face of a furry friend or an elderly woman, she sees her art unfold in the world around her.
So I could sit there in the hospital room and doodle.
But some of her other paintings have a purpose, one that puts creativity aside and relies on her knowledge of anatomy, anthropology, and ancestry.
That's the skull telling you who they are and what they look like, the cheekbones, the forehead.
Pewterbaugh is a forensic artist. Over the last 10 years, she's created the faces of some of San Diego's most mysterious unidentified deaths, using either the skull or a picture of the corpse.
This one right here was from Pacific Beach, the drowning victim. And then this young man actually fell off the parking structure at Horton Plaza a few years ago.
In July, just hours after Pewterbaugh released this sketch to the medical examiner, the young woman who was hit and killed on the 94 freeway was identified, as was this 19-year-old shot in the back and left in the street in San Bernardino.
Just a gorgeous, gorgeous young girl.
Brought back to life on paper because Pewterbaugh understands post-mortem composition.
Things relax, the eyebrows go up a little. The ends of your eyes draw up a little.
She calls her work an honor, one that deserves her best to bring dignity to the dead.
There's a connection that you're actually touching someone's skull.
She photographs it to scale, then draws it.
So you know that the eyebrow is going to ride right in here.
Then she builds it.
He may not look exactly like Uncle Bobby, but you remember that Uncle Bobby has an underbite.
When does she know when to stop drawing? For that, Pewterbaugh quotes another forensic artist.
When I start to see the person looking back at me, that's when I stop.
She says the reward is getting a hit, knowing someone who died alone and unknown is going home.
Everybody was somebody's child, and they didn't intend to end up in that situation. You know, that wasn't the plan. You're born, you're going to live, you're going to pass it sometime, but it wasn't going to be in the street or in the desert.
Thanks, Kimberly. And a group of ratepayer advocates are blasting Governor Jerry Brown for signing a bill they say will cause a massive increase in utility rates. A sweeping wildfire prevention bill signed by the governor on Friday is being denounced as a bailout for utility companies like PG&E. The legislation will allow utility companies to shift some fire-related costs onto ratepayers without the approval from the California Public Utilities Commission. The investor-owned utility giant could face billions of dollars in fines and cleanup costs for possible negligence from last year's Northern California wildfires. Ratepayers advocates say struggling PG&E customers will be on the hook to pay for those costs and could see a significant spike in their utility bills. But Congress is defending your personal space on airplanes tonight. It hasn't passed yet, but both parties created a bill which would stop airlines from continuously shrinking the seats. And not just the seats itself, but your personal space too. You've probably noticed the row in front of you seems to be inching closer and closer. Lawmakers also say forcibly removing people from planes is also something that may be part of the past, and it will be against the law to put any live animals in the overhead bin after a dog died in March from that same situation. The bill is expected to pass the House and the Senate this week, and then it should make its way to the president's desk. Chris?
There's a shortage of 911 dispatchers across the country. Obviously an important job, a job that can come with a lot of stress. And the Now's Annie Taylor spending part of the day with the dispatcher to find out exactly what it takes to fill these critical positions.
Where are you at right now?
Answering the phone seems simple enough.
But I got it in for you, okay?
But when it's an emergency, it's a very different call.
I had my first CPR last week and it was really nerve-wracking.
Kero Kirshner has been on the dispatch floor answering calls for only 4 months.
We got trained to how to do it, but I hadn't done it yet. So I was very nervous on making sure I was calm.
Working 12-hour shifts and picking up plenty of overtime, Carol is essentially the linchpin in the emergency response system.
I get really anxious about certain calls. When I see 911 drop in, I really am like, okay, hopefully this is like nothing big deal. I can do this.
Some days her calls are pretty easy.
People just talking about like parking complaints, things like that don't really have anything to do with like safety or, somebody being in danger of any sort.
But other days, it's the difference between life or death.
Were you guys inside a store? Were you outside? When was he waving the gun at you? But then you have the calls that come in, where babies aren't breathing, people find their significant others or family members passed away. Sometimes you'll have people that have just gotten like robbed or shot or things like that.
Right around this corner is the dispatch center. That's where Carol takes her calls every single day. But before she was even allowed to step foot in there, she had to go through a 4-week training program inside of a classroom to make sure she can handle the stress.
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average annual salary for a dispatcher is just over $37,000, and most places only require a high school diploma.
Some days I feel really fulfilled. I feel like I've really helped people, especially when they're in their worst situations. Other days I don't feel like I've done enough, or I didn't get any like extreme calls for me personally that I had to do a whole lot for.
Just like the calls that come in, as random as this job was for Carol to take, she's happy making a difference in her community. For the Now, I'm Annie Taylor.
Annie, thank you. And next in our lineup, we have a conversation with Heather Heyer's mother today. Heather was the woman who was killed in last year's white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Her mother with a strong message about how she wants her daughter remembered.
I really get aggravated when people want to deify her and make her into some saint-like figure who was a leader of some sort. She wasn't.
Yeah, it's a powerful conversation, really about how we can all make a difference. That is when the Now continues. Let's get to the Now news feed. Pope Francis saying the Catholic Church needs to change to keep people going to it. Francis said the sex abuse scandal, it has driven many away, and he says the church wants to be transparent in its response. A new poll showing that Americans now view the Republican Party more favorably than at any other point in the last 7 years. That's 45% of people feeling good about the GOP. Democrats faring just about the same with 44%. That's according to a Gallup poll. Well, soon, people may not be able to buy e-cigarettes online. The FDA is looking into banning online sales. The head of the FDA recently dubbing youth e-cig use an epidemic. Safety investigators believe better headlights may be the way to avoid pedestrian deaths. Now, headlights that automatically adjust to help drivers see better when there's oncoming traffic, those are common in Europe. But recently, U.S. federal rules block those headlights from being made here. Now the NTSB is stepping in and saying the U.S. needs to update those regulations and should also include pedestrian safety and a new car safety rating system. Well, now that new warning from the FBI, scammers going to lengths to steal your money, and this one may involve your employer. The Now's investigator Jace Larson has more on what they're doing and how you can keep your money safe.
We've all gotten the calls and the emails, someone trying to scam us or take our money. For most of us, it happens frequently. The FBI is warning us about the latest scam that could take your paycheck literally. Typically, it involves an email that looks like it's from your employer. It might ask you to log in for a survey. Well, during that survey, the bad guys capture your username and password for your work login. It might not seem like a big deal, except then these criminals can log into your work account and change your direct deposit information, so your paycheck goes into their accounts. They typically try to put your money into prepaid credit card accounts. The FBI says you can avoid this by not sharing your credentials in an email or through a survey. Hover your cursor over links of any email to see what that web address is. If it seems suspicious, don't risk it and don't click. I'm Jace Larson, The Now.
Good info there, Jace. Also mark this on your calendar because this Saturday is National Coffee Day, but hey, since we're already addicted, the true freebies are kind of limited. Only Krispy Kreme's giving away free coffee, no strings attached there. McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts, they have discounts and deals. You also may want to check out your local coffee shop. They might have something going on. And if you're ever in New York City, according to Wallet Hub, they have the most coffee shops per capita, most affordable coffee, and probably no surprise here, they also have the most donut shops.
Thanks, Chris. And a helpful reminder tonight for all of our viewers and voters, there's just 6 weeks until the November midterm elections. Every year, millions of Americans find they can't vote because they missed a registration deadline, didn't update their registration, or just aren't sure where to start. Well, today is National Registration Day, and thousands of volunteers across all 50 states are working to make sure your voices are heard. And new data released by the California Secretary of State shows that more than 200,000 16 and 17-year-old students have pre-registered to vote. More than half of those students have not chosen a political party, but more than 34% of them have pre-registered as Democrats and more than 9% as Republicans. In 2014, Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill that allows voter pre-registration beginning at age 16 once California's statewide voter registration database VoteCal was certified. The certification was complete in 2016, and the Secretary of State's office began the pre-registration process with the teenagers in 2017. And here locally, the United Farm Workers Foundation will be celebrating by registering Kern County voters at CSUB. It's happening tomorrow from 11:30 in the morning to 1 p.m. in the afternoon at the Red Brick Road on campus. And CSUB will be offering free Subway to those who attend. And Allison, Gargaro is where all of the best treats are at the Kern County Fair. What's it looking like out there, Allison?
Well, Tori, the sun is going down, temperatures are cooling down, and that just means we can see all of the pretty lights behind me, especially at the Ferris wheel. It's just gorgeous out here this afternoon. We're feeling a light breeze, and more people are coming out because temperatures dropping down significantly because we were warm this afternoon. 94 degrees was our high here in Bakersfield today. That is above seasonal normal for this time of year, 88 degrees, and these temperatures only going to continue to increase. So right now here in Bakersfield, we're up 1 degree from what we were feeling this time yesterday, up 4 in Tehachapi, and 7 in Mojave. And Again, those temperatures going to be creeping on up, nearing that century mark. We could be seeing the triple digits, especially in the desert, and potentially reaching it for us here in Bakersfield. But if you are planning on coming out to the fair tomorrow, doors open at 3 p.m., ends at 10, so it's going to be warming up 96 already by 3 p.m. That's warmer than what we were feeling today, but then dropping down to the mid-70s, mild, calm, and clear. Going to be feeling great out there if you're planning on coming in the evening hours. But unfortunately, as temperatures increase, so does that number on our air quality index. We're going to be unhealthy for sensitive groups tomorrow with an AQI of 115. Now, that's worse than what we've been seeing in days past, so you're definitely going to be able to see the effects from all the dust, from the blowing dust that we were seeing this afternoon. But let's take a look at our temperatures for the next week. 97 degrees on Wednesday, clouds rolling in on Thursday, not going to keep us from reaching 98 degrees as a high here in Bakersfield, but then cooling down significantly down to 86 on Saturday and Sunday, which are unfortunately the last 2 days of the fair, but thankfully it is going to be just gorgeous over the weekend. So if you haven't come out to the fair yet, definitely make sure you make it out this weekend, Monday, the first day of October, and it looks like we could be seeing our first chance of precipitation this season. So just a 20% chance of rain, potentially up to 40 as we head into the middle of next week, but we'll have more details as we get closer to see exactly how much, if any, precipitation we will be feeling. But just got to get through a few more days of these hot temperatures and then right back down to feeling like fall. But now Bakersfield will be right back.
The mother of the woman killed in last year's white supremacist rally in Charlottesville is making sure the fight continues for the issues her daughter cared so strongly about. We went to Virginia. We talked one-on-one with her about that new mission. It's really a lesson for all of us. August 12th, 2017 brought a lot of things to Charlottesville, Virginia. Anger, hate, violence. It took so much more. Like Susan Bro's daughter, Heather Heyer, the only person killed that day.
I often liken losing a child to an amputation. It's challenging really challenging at first. Your life is never the same, but you can survive it. You can move forward.
She started the Heather Heyer Foundation to give scholarships to people who are passionate about social change.
We're trying to support the training and education of the next generation of advocates.
How do you want Heather remembered?
As a normal person who chose to do the right thing. I really get aggravated when people want to deify her and make her into some saint-like figure who was a leader of some sort. She wasn't. She was way back in the pack. She was with her friends. Just look at Heather as an example of what can happen if one person takes a stand. Unfortunately, it took a white girl to die before white America and white world bothered to pay attention.
Now, more than a year later, when Susan sees the street named to honor her daughter, she sees qualities that could do a lot of good moving forward.
The messages are not necessarily for Heather, they're for solidarity, for resistance, for compassion, unity. There's a lot of different reasons that people write on the wall, and it's always interesting to see where they're from, what they've had to say.
Yeah, powerful story and message there. Also, another day, another recall to tell you about. Listen to this. Some popular macadamia nuts, they're being taken off the shelves. These Mauna Loa brand nuts could be tainted with E. coli. This affects nuts that are packaged from September 6th through the 21st, and this comes after the company found E. coli in its drinking water. Well, it sounds like we do hear about a new food recall every single day. Just last week, we told you about a beef recall that's involving E. coli. Tainted lettuce, also remember that. That made some headlines earlier this year. And part of the problem with the lettuce was it was just so hard to track down exactly where that outbreak was coming from. And right now, many stores and food producers really only use pen and paper to track down where a product came from. That means it takes at least a week to track down the source. Now, stores then have to contact the supplier to get more paper records before they can contact the makers of the product. But after that lettuce E. coli outbreak, Walmart decided to use a digital approach. Walmart working with IBM to create handheld devices to enter information about a product. Now, record keeping starts as soon as a product's made, and if Walmart ever needs to check up on something, it takes as little as 2 seconds to get that information. Also, brands are starting to use technology as well. Some other ones, including Kroger, Tyson Foods, Dole McCormick, and Unilever. All right, next in our lineup, the hidden dangers and some popular social media posts. Check these out. They go viral, but that's really where the trouble starts. We'll tell you about that next. You're watching The Now. Well, you could have a refund on the way if you've been getting some unwanted text messages, because the FTC is sending out more than 22,000 checks as part of its latest crackdown on mobile cramming. That's when you get messages containing like celebrity gossip alerts or horoscopes on your phone, and you never signed up for them, but you end up getting a monthly subscription fee on your bill. Well, we recently told you about people literally risking their lives just to get that perfect photo in New York's Catskill Mountains. And it's a serious situation because at least 4 people have died. But this is becoming a trend around the country as well. And the Now's Andy Taylor explaining how this is causing problems for emergency crews.
Rescue teams around the country are reporting that more people are needing to be rescued, all because they're risking their safety for cool pictures. Yeah, just northeast of Los Angeles, for example, people are jumping off of Hermit Falls for Instagram videos and photos. Well, the LA County Sheriff's Department is warning against this, saying the water may be too shallow. And the department says it's seen nearly a 40% increase in rescues since 2013. And many of those are because of these extreme videos and photos. Others risk their lives just by walking on slippery rocks or even hiking through an area where there's a big elevation change. And rescuers say this just isn't worth it. Not only are you putting your health and life at risk, but if you do end up calling first responders, you'll end up with a hefty bill too.
Wow, Annie, thank you. And tomorrow on the Now, we're checking out a school that gives students a break 1 day a week from classes like math and history. So what are they doing instead? What about their teachers? That's tomorrow.
Thanks, Chris. And coming up tonight on 23 ABC News at 11, a woman's brush with death turns into an amazing story of survival. Learn more on how she managed to stay alive for days after crashing into a ravine. Again, that story and more is all happening tonight on 23 ABC News at 11. And we're going to take a live look outside at our roof cam and check out some of these awesome temperatures that are taking place at the fair right now that Allison Gargaro touched on. Make sure you head down there as soon as you can. This is the last week of the fair, so make sure you check it out. And that's going to do it for us here at the Now.